Passacaglia, the name that marks the beginning of Karrakin history. Passacaglia is a mutable canvas in the modern Karrakin cultural narrative, though most commonly associated with the aspects of martial and civic might, that of uniter, of warlord, of the Karrakin will to rule. In his youth, Passacaglia united Karrakis into a single world, defined a global capital, and laid the foundation for Anorum throne. By his death, he planted the seeds for both Karrakis' expansion to an interplanetary empire and the next great conflict it would face. The Melee period persisted for roughly 6 centuries, during which the Karrakin people defined new borders around 4 city-states, Laran, Reis, Cosimo, and Delamar, and one coveted territory, Karrakis City. The 4 city-states were governed by powerful warlords in a rather traditional feudal style. Their leaders were the heads of new dynasties, and their lands were held first by might and then by common laws created to justify land ownership, feudal dues, and fealty. The coveted territory, Karrakis City, was little more than a hunting ground for the other city-states. What remained of the colonial government had long been folded, under the pressures of neighboring city-states eager to annex the riches of the feeble capital. Karrakis City was not the world's capital during the Melee, but a victim of repeated raids from the surrounding warlords. It was a rich corpse to be picked over and scavenged from. The 4 city-states fought bitterly over the remaining technologies, machine mines, all but inexhaustible nuclear supplies, auto fabricators, refineries, etc. The development of most other technology was pushed back by centuries as critical resources, parts, and expertise became all but inaccessible. Small-scale warfare reigned in an age of scavengers and skulkers, of wandering bands of warriors and peasant levies pitted against them, of fearsome villains and local champions. It was into this hardscrabble world that Passacaglia was born. Karrakin mythohistorians all agree that Passacaglia was born to an ignoble family pledged to serve the city-state of Reis and its ruler, Pasha Reis. A peasant, Passacaglia's life is written as simple and pastoral with a wealth of parables attesting to his virility, good planning, and filial piety. As a youth, Passacaglia worked the vast wheat fields of the Reis, a low-lying agricultural city-state that bordered the outermost ruins of Karrakis City. It was in the humble wheat field that Passacaglia developed his martial prowess. It was in the humble wheat field, too, that Passacaglia was first tested by the world he would later conquer. Raiding parties were a common threat to the peasants of Karrakis, and death, natural or violent, came swiftly and often. To ward off both, ignoble families banded together in many family communal complexes led by consensus councils pledged to their local pasha. They would tithe a significant percentage of their harvest to the pasha, who, in turn, would raise, train, equip, and maintain standing security forces to protect them from raiders. Unaffiliated bandits, minor warlords, and scavengers out from the ruins of Karrakis City and the unaffiliated countryside often targeted these communes. During times of diplomatic tension, so too would liberated soldiers from rival city-states attack, targeting fields, structures, and laborers. This back-and-forth raiding had supplanted large wars, as no pasha really sought to upend the larger trade structures that maintained a rough equilibrium between them. A later portion of Passacaglia's mythohistorians reveals that this was by design. The pashas held regular peace councils, negotiating over the number of fairly contested raids each would allow on their outlying tracts, in exchange for guarantees that no larger battles would take place. The pashas feared the terrible violence that large-scale war could bring, and were comfortable with the comparatively small number of dead they buried each year. To those in power, the system was stable and cost them little. Passacaglia and his family were part of a commune negotiated away by Pasha Reis. The epic poem, At Passacaglia Ita, speaks of constant attacks on Passacaglia's commune. The Ita notes that he once had 15 brothers. Each year another brother was killed in the fighting until only Passacaglia and his last 3 brothers remained. At the urging of his mothers, Passacaglia begged audience with the Pasha Reis, imploring him to act in defense of his home. He was refused. The next year, another brother was killed. Passacaglia was sent again to beg action, and was again refused. The year after, his eldest and favorite brother was slain. He begged once more, and was once more refused. 3 times refused, his home haunted with the weeping of his mothers. Passacaglia and his last remaining brother, Anaxandrin, decided they must act. They devised a plan, and brought it to their mothers, who in turn offered it to the soldiers garrisoned there. They felt this to be proper, given that, along with the family and the harvest, the small garrison had suffered terribly. Passacaglia would seek the scavenger kings and waste lords of Karrakis City, and offer them the commune's tithe in exchange for weapons and soldiers they might use to kill Pasha Reis. Meanwhile, Anaxandrin would stay behind, using the cover of the long winter months to spread their message, that Pasha Reis was derelict in his duty to them, that he was a weak ruler, who would see them dead rather than warm and safe, and that Passacaglia would return in spring to bring the people a better rule. The garrison agreed to the plan, and Passacaglia and a small group of soldiers soon left under the cover of storm and darkness. The dead months of winter were upon them, a time when all communes fell silent and buttoned up to face the chill, and no raids occurred for a time. Few would brave the inclement weather, certainly not the Pasha's tithy men, and so the small band had a few months in which to enact their plan. When the spring thaw came, so would the tithy men, to account for how many had died in the winter and dictate which fields should be sown. Into the dead ancient city ventured Passacaglia and his band. When spring came, Passacaglia returned as promised, this time at the head of a great army of the lost and forgotten. Bearing ancient weapons of status, they marched with one target, Pascharis's stronghold, and flew an old banner, the burgundy and gold of Karrakis, the ancient unified colony. The attack took Pascharis blind, his stronghold fell within the first day, all but his most loyal and professional soldiers either surrendering or turning coat to join with Passacaglia. Anaxandrin's whispering, his stealing away in the dead of night to nearby communes, his organizing among the farmers and the levies, had made a land fecund for revolutionary spirit. When Passacaglia himself threw open the doors of the dead ruler's stronghold, he was welcomed with cheers and cries of Pasha. The people nominated him to sit the throne of the city-state of Reis. From there, Passacaglia would launch a campaign that toppled the three other city-states within a decade. The first anorum was soon to come. The facts of Passacaglia's reign are buried, often literally, in the depths of Karrakin mythos. Few hard facts remain, owing in large part to the rebuilding effort of later regimes, beyond the founding legend of Passacaglia found in the Et Passacaglia Eta. The archaeological record and a precious few instances of written text are all that remain of Passacaglia's rule. What is known, however, is that his death was not the end of his dynasty. For a time, Anaxandrin ruled over Karrakis, followed by other heirs of Passacaglia's line and, later, intermarried families, in what became known as the Anorum Passacaglia. Passacaglia and the Anorum Passacaglia are topics of great interest in the modern Baronic consciousness, especially within conservative political movements. Passacaglia's artifacts and histories represent a part of Karrakin history that has largely been lost, a pre-tyrannic pre-Baronic time before the advent of the noble houses and ruling cardinals, one far older than previous histories would have the public believe. Passacaglia's rule is not necessarily viewed as a counter to Baronic ideology or iconography. He was, after all, an absolute monarch who established a dynasty that ruled the world for thousands of years, and as such his newly revealed histories have not been suppressed. In winter, the rest time for the four lands, Passacaglia and his band did venture to Karrakis, the ancient city of god birth. There they sought the tyrant of Karrakis, a great warrior named Baltaji. The road was long and desperate, and many did die as their armor did not to warm them, and their cloth was thin and torn, and their bellies were empty. All nights were cold and deep, but Passacaglia was of good cheer, and his captains did lend him their heat as Passacaglia had shared it with them, as was wanted. It was on a cold and bitter night like this that Passacaglia saw a ghost light bobbing in the falling snow. "Do not chase it," urged one loyal captain, "it is a ghost light, to bewitch travelers. In summer it leads to death, surely it begets the same in winter, if not worse." But Passacaglia, always of good cheer, for he already took their fill of suffering under the Pasha, and grief was his name after 10 and 3 of his brothers had died, took up his spear and said to their beloved captain, "Take heart, O captain, I am only a humble farm boy, and you a strong soldier. If I fall, you will take up my name, and carry my dream in your breast farther than I." And Passacaglia left, and chased the ghost light through the howling snow, and came to a small ruin of a home where the ghost light was trapped. "Little ember," Passacaglia called to the light, "why have you led me here? What message do you carry for my ears?" And from a deeper shadow yet in the home, a voice issued, saying, "Do not seek out the speaker of this voice, listen only to my words, and make no movement, and when I am done you will be guided back to your camp. I am Oracle, and I have seen the end of all stories. You are called Passacaglia, and your name will never be uttered in darkness. Before you lies 6,000 years of empire, yours if you continue along your path, but know this, to continue will only feed a terrible will, whose name is Dis, and whose appetite is vast as the starlit sky. Will you continue?" Passacaglia, without hesitation, said to the oracle, "Yes, Pasha has doomed my mothers and killed my brothers, I must continue. Why will this turn your terrible wheel?" And the oracle said, "Your empire would be built at the tip of a spear, your fields watered with arrows, and then bullets, and then coherent particles, you would build a monument to your brothers, and to your mothers, and you would form it from the ash and bone of the brothers and mothers of your enemies, and hear only the cheers of your people, and not the cries of the children of those innumerable dead. This, Passacaglia, is the fuel for the will that consumes the empires made by brave young heroes like you. This ponderous whinging curdled Passacaglia's fair features into a terrible mask of hate, and so storming into the back of the small house he found the oracle there, a creature wrapped in rags. Passacaglia threatened the oracle with Tui at its neck and said, "Speak no more, oracle, but to beg for mercy. You do not know the life I have suffered, you have not heard the cries of my brothers, or the wailing of my mothers, nor the hope my words bring to those who have suffered as I have." And the oracle, laughing, said, "Do you think I fear death, Passacaglia? I, who have seen the great will disgrind across my own sky and gave it name, I, who have heard countless times those very words spoken from mouths like yours, I, who has lived and who has died, I, who has gained this knowledge and many other secret ones." So Passacaglia stabbed the oracle through the throat with Tui, and the oracle laughed and said, "You are braver than most, Passacaglia, and fool who must learn. Go, build your empire, I will meet you again at the end." And the oracle died, though there was no blood, and when Passacaglia tore off the creature's robes they found not a man, as he thought, but a golem in the shape of a man, made of like skin, with black blood and green blood, and saw many ghost lights blinking where its eyes should be. Passacaglia took the oracle's cloak, finding it a fine and sturdy thing, and left his spear Tui, and returned to his camp. There, Passacaglia took comfort in his captains, and forgot the words of the oracle, and continued to Karrakis, where he would build their empire. Passacaglia on the road to Karrakis, recorded by Xenaglos Augur Bartholomel Optimisme, 2230 U. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.